There you go. Greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to our Saturday show right here with the crew and Smash Up Sports. We missed you guys last week, but we're back today. I see Chris is already in the queue. Reggie's going to be a little late, but how are we doing today, Chris?
I'm good. How you doing, James?
Oh, hey, man. Well, as to be expected. Saw my Ravens come back uh, Thursday night, much to my chagrin. I needed the Bungles to pick that one out, but so it is. So, how have you been?
Good. Obviously, had a couple weeks I was away. I had a little bit of time in New York and everything, and now I'm back and excited to be back on the pod.
Oh man, and um, I don't know what happened last week, but I actually won some money.
I saw that you were one of the winners in the weekly tournament, which if your listeners don't know is again completely free to play over on Smash Up. You know we can't take your money if we want to, so no entry fees, no pay to win. But we have weekly tournaments with some cash prizes. And James, I saw you had so we had a special tournament last week where not only did the top scores overall win, we had about 14 special Halloween cards. And if you had the top scoring lineup that had one of those cards in it, you won as well. And I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but I saw
It
you
was
got
a
one of the top
defense.
lineups, so you made a little money.
Yeah, yeah. So for those of you that haven't been familiar with Smash Mouth, Smash Up Sports, uh, Chris, why don't you give us a quick introduction before we get off into our talks this week?
Yeah, so Smash Up Sports, as mentioned, is completely free to play. It is fantasy football, but in addition to setting a lineup, you also get to add these Smash cards, which essentially are look like cards that boost your players, improve their scores, give you extra fantasy points based on your knowledge about the game. So, for example, if you think that, or now it's done, if you had a good feeling that Jamar Chase was going to catch some long bombs, you can play a card like Speed Demon on him, where you get an extra 30 points if he catches a pass of 40 yards or more. He did. A lot of people scored with that one who obviously played. We started the week already. So we have weekly tournaments, we have league play, and then we have the world's first single player campaign, where basically you go up against six bosses. The lineups are set by fantasy experts, people from like Fantasy Pros, Scott Fish from Scott Fishbowl Tournament, a few others. And essentially, the goal is to beat all six bosses before the end of the regular season. And if you do, you qualify for our postseason tournament of champions with $10,000 in cash and prizes, again, completely free. So super fun. And if you are talented and good at fantasy football, you can walk away with some extra money in your pocket like our friend James here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, so how did we do last week?
It was an interesting week, right? I think I went about 50-50 with my fantasy team. So had been on a bit of a hot streak, and last week got stopped cold in my tracks in a couple of places. How about yourself?
Oh, most definitely. When you look at the landscape last week, there were not a lot of upsets, but just enough to kind of make you have to tweak your fantasy rosters. We had a lot of more guys go out. We had some come back in. Uh, but some of our more interesting uh, things that are happening this week is possibly the return of Christian.
Well, so this is with me, that's going to be interesting from a fantasy standpoint for one, but two, if you can see the poster in the background here, I'm a huge 49ers fan. So as a football fan, the same way we'll celebrate when something good happens to the Steelers. It's just a big week for me as a fan.
Let's talk about your receiving core here. Though it seems like well, I guess Debo will be back this week. Have we heard anything else on Debo?
I have not heard a lot. I think Debo should be back. I think Christian McCaffrey should be back. So you're going to start to see the Niners getting to full strength, at least on offense, given out for the year. Defense, still a couple of guys like Greenlaw are out, so still getting up to speed there. But yeah, the full roster's back. I think Jennings is the only guy who might miss. But if he does, one of the kind of sleeper value picks, if you're really desperate in your league or if you're playing DFS, you need a value play, would actually be Ricky Pearsall. So the rookie, right before the bye, came back from getting shot, of all things, and had 30 yards first week, 45 yards the second week with, I think, 3 and 4 catches. Now he's had a bye week to get a better rapport with Purdy. So just a guy to keep an eye on as we move forward, especially if there are more injuries.
Yeah, and Purcell has been available on quite a few rosters this week if you want to pick him up off waivers. But, of course, Jennings has also been on waivers. So almost either one of those you could almost pick up as you wish. Let's kind of stick with that NFC West. What do you see coming back from Geno and the Seahawks?
I don't know. I had a lot of hope for this Ryan Grubb offense. And on the one hand, they've put up some points, and it's been a better fantasy season for players like DK before he got injured. Jackson Smith-Njigba had a big week last week. I told you that I had a couple of leagues where I'd been on a hot streak and didn't do as well. Well, in one of those, I was going up against JSN, and he put up 33 points and helped to TKO me. I was going into the week where I was not expecting that. I mean, I know DK was out. I know he was going to get some extra targets, but if you watch the game, I think he had, at the end of the third quarter, he had like 6 or 7 points, and then in the fourth quarter in overtime, he got multiple touchdowns and had a big game. So yeah, I mean, individually they've helped some players, but they just haven't really taken off yet. And I don't know if they just need more time to adapt to the offense, or maybe we overrated Geno a little bit. What do you think?
I thought Geno may have been overrated a little bit, but he had a good wide receiving core, and I think that's of course, Metcalf being out hasn't helped him any. The first couple weeks without Walker, so I think Geno is I think he's a viable quarterback, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't rate him as anything overly. I wouldn't pick him up. I'll put it like that. I like. I got Purdy. I'm going to keep Purdy. I like Purdy. A couple leagues I have Jalen, so I'm going to keep him. But if you're on a bye week, maybe you might want to pick up a Geno just for a 1 week span. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, there's certainly worse quarterbacks out there. I think he started to come back on a little bit after struggling some. If he's on waivers, he's probably one of the better quarterbacks on waivers. If you're playing in, DFS, or if you're setting a lineup over on SmashUp, which also uses a salary cap, he's cheap, right? So he's not going to cost you as much as some of the other quarterbacks. So I would agree with you. He's a guy that's a bit of a value play.
Yeah. Let's talk about another one of our favorite teams, and that's the Cowboys. Dak is now supposedly going to be out for the rest of the year. You have CD that's nicked up. One of the things that had me shaking my head this week was the pickup of Mingo. What the hell is that about?
Yeah, it's interesting. He has not shown anything in the NFL so far, and they gave up a pretty decent draft pick to get him. I believe it was a fourth round pick, correct?
Yeah,
That's pretty good draft capital for a guy who,
it's caught what 5 balls in the last 2 years.
I was gonna say maybe I can look it up on the side while we're talking about him, but it's not that much more. Yeah, the Cowboys are in trouble. I mean, the trade is one thing, but the Dak injury is huge, and I know that Dak gets a lot of hate, particularly for his meltdowns in the postseason. I think Rush was solid filling in last week, but I don't see him taking the mantle long term. He's a okay passer, but not great, and he does not run the ball at all. So, first of all, I have a hard time seeing him being relevant for fantasy football, but even for the Cowboys in real life. Look, I'm a 49ers fan. I don't like the Cowboys. One of the first things I taught my nephew to say when he was a little kid, his dad was a Cowboys fan, and I taught him the phrase "stinky Cowboys," and I stand by that. With that said, I hate to see someone get hurt. Dak has never been anything but a class act, and I just wish they lost because they were bad. So I hate to see them lose because of this.
Yeah, that's true. Also, what about your Commanders?
Oh, you know what? Actually, a little better than I thought. So looked up Mingo right now, and 12 receptions this year, but he did have 43 last year. Keep in mind, he was probably one of the few players that Young had to throw to, but 43 receptions on 85 targets. So not a great catch rate, although maybe Bryce Young's fault for 418 yards. So yeah, decent yards per reception. We'll see what he can do with another quarterback. But you asked about the Commanders. Hey, listen, all the credit in the world to Adam Peters there, right? Adam Peters is our old assistant GM with the Niners. Worked with John Lynch, obviously became the top dog over in Washington. And I think this is first season, maybe second. I'm blinking. But what a phenomenal job, right? Their defense went from being a joke the first few weeks to starting to actually look legitimate. Obviously, Jaden Daniels is a revelation. Looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league already. And the team just looks good. I can only imagine what they'll do with another year of Peters there. What are your thoughts? Do you think they're legitimate? Do you think they're contenders, or do you think it's a mirage?
I think they're contenders. I like, especially with the meltdown of Dak and the boys. I really think that they're in contention this year, and I look for them to go nowhere but up.
Yeah, this could be a legitimate playoff team, which is it's scary to think about. I will tell you, speaking again of sleepers, and I want to level set here. I'm not talking about someone who's going to win your league or be probably a long-term starter. But if you have players on buys, if you have injuries, one player I found myself picking up in a couple of leagues and putting a couple of DFS lineups as like my cheapest receiver is Noah Brown. I think Zach Ertz people know about already, but Noah Brown had a pretty decent run with Houston last year when Tank Dell got hurt, and they had a few guys banged up. And then this year he's looked good with Washington. He seems to be slowly emerging right alongside Scary Terry as a favorite target of Daniels in this ad. I mean, setting aside the Hail Mary he caught, which is a bit of a fluke, he still had 50 plus yards the last couple of weeks. So I'd say has that touchdown. He's gotten a few looks in the red zone. So again, not a guy that's going to win your league for you necessarily, but if you need someone to fill in, maybe go see if Noah Brown is on your waiver wire.
You talked about Scary Terry. More consistency this year?
A bit more. I think that the biggest thing, and I don't know if this is sustainable, is he's caught a few more touchdowns, right? Some of that is just the Redskins scoring more as a team with Daniels. Some of that might be a little bit of a fluke, but he's got 6 touchdowns so far through 9 weeks, which is more than he's had in the past. He's usually been more of a deep threat. Ironically, he's actually, I don't think, has caught a bunch of deep balls. And in fact, the yardage at times, I'm sort of pulling it up here. Actually, I take it back. He's set a few. He hasn't got the deep balls. He actually had good yardage, except for last week. But yeah, he's another guy who's benefited a lot from Daniel's presence. Do you trust him for your fantasy team, though?
Once again, he's one of those guys where I plug him in where I don't have anyone else. My wide receiving core is pretty good. I like him in as a flex when I do put him in. Uh, but Scary Terry has always lived up to his name. I do. He's just doesn't have enough consistency for me to put him in on a regular basis every week.
Yeah, he's still a guy who's just trying to show he can do a bit more. I agree. He has the big weeks. He has the spike weeks. He seems to be coming around a bit this season. I was a little surprised myself. I pull him up on the side over here, and the last 4 weeks, 100 yards, 52, 112, 53, 98, 125, 19 last week. So the 19 obviously is poor. But a few weeks before that, between 50 and 100 and something, better than he's played the last couple of years. Obviously, with much worse quarterback. So, maybe not a true number one receiver, but certainly, it seems to be hitting his stride as a guy you maybe can feel comfortable with as your number two or number three receiver.
What's your take on Bijan this year?
Man, I listen, I'm biased. I'm a huge Bijan fan. He is. One of the things we don't talk about a ton in fantasy is, look, first and foremost, you want to win, right? Winning is what matters. You want to go out there, you want to crush your friends, or if you're playing DFS, you want to win some money. But it's nice when you actually like your team and they're fun to watch. And Bijan is a joy. He's electric. Every time he touches the ball, he makes moves. It just, unless actually that maybe he hasn't done what Saquon did. Saquon, that move last week was insane, but Bijan is electric with the ball. And I think, he started the year a little bit slow as Cousins was getting there and they're figuring out the offense. But he has started to come on really strong. He really has not had, those kind of CMC type, Saquon type weeks yet. So if he's still a guy who maybe can buy a little bit low, and I would buy him because he's getting some of the targets, he's getting the handoffs, he's running the ball really well. So I feel like at any moment he could start busting out a few massive games. What's your take?
I like Bijan. I think, like you said, every time he touches the ball, there's that possibility of him going to the yard. I think he fits their scheme very well. But once again, is he going to get those touches down and close? Is it going to be Jaden? You just don't know who the man is going to be when they get down in that red zone.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that he's missing, right? And I know it's a little bit fluky. I know that touchdowns can be one of those weird stats where a player playing exactly the same quality football. You look at a guy like Sam Laporta, right? He gets 10 last year. He's averaging like one touchdown every 8 catches, which is an insane rate. And then, this year it's close to 1 every 12. Starts to drag down his value. And I think with Bijan, it's the opposite, which he just hasn't gotten the touchdown so far. But the last few weeks, he's been, between 60 and 100 plus yards rushing. 3 weeks in a row now with about 40 to 60 yards receiving. So he's putting up numbers. And I just have to believe if he keeps getting those kinds of stats, the Falcons offense is good enough. The touchdown should come.
Let's talk about a young back that has been making some strides, and that's Tracy Jr. Even though the Giants are an enigma, and there's no one there that I think really has any fantasy value other than Tracy Jr. Maybe you can enlighten me here.
Yeah, he's another guy who's actually been, he's no Bijan, don't get me wrong, but he's been fun to watch. Was actually in Las Vegas when the Giants were playing. If I'm remembering correctly, and I may not be, I believe it was a Thursday night game, and he was running the ball really well, and I've been keeping an eye on him ever since. Beyond sort of box score watching, I've been catching a few moments of the Giants games, which are fun to watch just for neighbors alone, and whatever team they play against because their defense is pretty bad. But Tracy's run the ball really well, and obviously this week they play Carolina, so Carolina has not been able to stop anybody on the ground. They are just a bad football team as well, despite that exciting win against the Saints last week, or the Aints, as we might call all their injuries, the way they've been playing. But yeah, I think if you have Tracy in your league, you're probably starting him. But if you're debating, this is a week to put him in your lineup. If you have a lot of depth, and if you're playing DFS or Smash Up, and you're trying to juggle a budget and find a running back who's a little bit cheaper, I'll tell you on Smash Up, I've got Tracy in several of my lineups. I think he's going to have a big week, and he doesn't cost as much as some of the bigger name guys.
Yeah, and when you consider, other than his in division games, you do have a chance for him to put up some numbers because his out of division games are actually a boon to you if you are someone that has Tracy, because he was that the NFC South he's playing.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so it is what it is. A guy that has been very surprising to me, and I will admit I was kind of skeptical when the change was made, but Drake May has put up some really good numbers.
Yeah, he was a guy I was keeping an eye on. I will say this: he struggled a bit in his last game. I think he's going to go through rookie struggles, and they don't have a lot of firepower in the offense. But where he saves you, and the reason I kept an eye on him, and I've scored a lot of points with him on Smash Up. One of the cards we have, and I don't know if you've used it yet, James, the Goldfish Memory Smash card, where you get 8 points for a turnover instead of losing 2 points. It's kind of like 10 points for every turnover. And so I've been playing May because his cost is cheap, right? But while he's turned the ball over some, A, he's thrown it, and B, all the way back to his time in college, he's, no one's going to mistake him for Jaden Daniels or Michael Vick, but he's a guy who's always run the ball. A little bit like Caleb Williams, right? He's a guy who can go out there and get you, 20, 30, 40 yards rushing in a game, and he may not break off or have the ability to break off the 60-yard run like Jaden can. But he's still a guy who's going to go out there and get you some yards with his feet, which helps to make up for some of his other mistakes or the lack of weapons they have in New England. What are your
if he can just, he's a rookie, so he's going to have those, those brain farts. But when you look at him compared to some of the other quarterbacks that have had much more experience, I think you can kind of live with his mistakes. Especially if you're in a 2-quarterback league, then I would definitely throw him in there with someone, because he's going to give you some of those what the hell was that, and then he's going to give you some of those god damn. And
that's every rookie. But I think he looks much better than Mac Jones, and the Patriots aren't going anywhere this year anyway. And on top of that, let me give you. Hey, what's up, Reggie?
What's going on, guys?
I love you're representing the fact you missed it. We were just talking about Bijan a moment ago.
Man, yeah, he's doing good things for us, guys. Now that we got our guy, now that I got my guy Arthur Smith out of here, who was just running Algier out there every other play last year, ruining my life after I reached for Bijan last year. But yeah, man, glad to be here with you guys. Glad to be on.
We're talking a bit about Drake May and the Patriots, and I was just gonna add, James, we're on the subject of Drake and the Patriots. Not a very good team. However, another guy who I think is a nice little sleeper this week, if you need a spot start or you're playing DFS, is Henry at tight end. He's gotten a ton of targets every week from
Hunter.
Drake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this week they've got a good matchup. So if you're in a little more pain, if you don't have a good tight end, if you have someone on a bye week, I don't know what you think, Reggie, but I'd take a look at Henry.
Yeah, I think so. And I like the Drake May situation. Drake May's looking like he may be one of those guys. Like it's a small sample size, but when you juxtapose that to what you were getting in New England, I hope you weren't starting any of those QBs before, like your Brissetts of the world. But I mean, he's looking like a guy. Like he's looking like a guy that might be able that you can run out there at least spell here a week or two if you got a couple guys on bye or something like that. And Hunter Henry, guys, has had these games the last few years where he'll have a few weeks here and there where he just looks like tight end one, and then he'll fall off the face of the earth after that. So, it's a good shot. You want to run Hunter Henry out there, he might get you 15, might get you 1. You never know.
Well, to be a little bit fair to Hunter, as we said, the last couple of years, he said, Brissett and Mac Jones throwing.
Mac Jones, yeah,
so,
for sure.
The fact that he's put up anything is probably a credit to him. If you throw him, listen, I'm not saying he's actually a tight end one by any stretch, but if you put him in on a team like the 49ers or the Eagles,
much better, right?
Or even the Falcons with Kirk Cousins, he might have looked better. So I guess with Drake May, maybe we're starting to see the real Hunter Henry.
Right.
What about Ramondre, guys?
Ramondre, man's a guy you got to run out there. Like if you got him on your team, you got to run him out there, right? Like you can't have him on your bench because here's the thing about players like Ramondre, and we talked about this before, James, on the other shows. Leave him on your bench at your peril. Like you can leave about 20 to 30 points on the bench, leaving Ramondre on the bench random weeks. Like and then, like we just said, guys, boom bust. He could give you a stinker. I think that Ramondre, for at least for guys that I played in the past seasons, and I don't know about as much this season because I don't really have him on my team. Or many teams. Like I have maybe one of him on my teams. Is the injuries kind of in and out of the lineup kind of situations is what tends to be what has happened to me and a few of my friends. Just checking to see if he's even playing, and then if he's playing, I think you got to put him in the lineup.
Yeah, he's an interesting player. I mean, you almost have to start him for the reasons Reggie's saying. I will say I had him. I do a lot of auction leagues, and so for whatever reason this year, I wanted a lot of teams that didn't have like a true star, but have a lot of depth. And I finally traded him in a league because he's a bizarre player in that the Patriots have a terrible offensive line. Like, I don't think it's Ramondre's fault, right? I think he's a solid average running back, but they have a terrible line. So the yards were just not coming. But Mayo, like Belichick, loves to use him in the red zone. So I think last week he had 30 total yards, but 2 touchdowns, which you'll take. But I finally was getting a little fed up, and you can tell me if you think it's good or bad, but I swapped him in a league where I needed some wide receiver help for Jaden Reed, and so I no longer have to think about him as I don't
think that's a bad trade. I mean, so you were able – was it just straight up, Chris? Like, so straight up Jaden or Reed, straight up Reed for Ramondre? Straight up?
Yeah, and to be fair, listen, it was offered to me. I was sitting there. It's my old college league. So it's kind of a mixed bag how much you can make trades in that league. But someone offered it to me. I was literally in a situation where I had a couple of guys who were injured. And so I was going to have to drop somebody to go pick up a receiver. There's no on the wire. And someone offered me Reed for Ramondre. And I took a look. Reed, the Packers been around. He's kind of he's almost the Ramondre of like wide receiver.
Right. I said you just switched the same guy, different position, and also what did you? Who were your backs currently, Chris? Like, so who are the backs that you had on that team in order to be able to let Ramondre go?
I'll look it up here real quick. Off the top of my head, though, it was James Cook, I believe Josh Jacobs. And let me say, I can tell you in 1 second, I have a third running back on my bench.
Man, I really feel like we're done at the first two, to be honest with you. We're kind of done there. I mean, James Cook and Josh Jacobs, Ramondre, see you later. I mean, pretty much, right?
Yeah, and it's a super flex league, so it's not one where I would never ever name the flex spots. Yeah, James Cook, Aaron Jones, and Josh Jacobs are 3 other backs out on top of Ramondre. So he was never going to really make it in the starting lineup.
He's not going to get into the lineup, right? For sure.
Staying with that division, let's talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen seems to be getting back and hitting his stride once again. We haven't seen a lot from Mr. Cooper yet. What do you think? What are your thoughts there, gentlemen? Just a matter of working him into the lineup, or
he got a touchdown that first game, right? So he paid dividends, instantaneous dividends, the first game he started. And then what? Has it been 3 games? Has he been there 3 games now? Or would this be the 3rd game this week? So this would be the 3rd game this week, right?
Yep.
Out of 2 games, I feel like if you guys, let's think about this, guys. If we put him in the lineup and they were set, and you could say to us, well, in the first couple of weeks, he'll at least get you a touchdown. You got some of these guys not getting you a touchdown in the 8 weeks and 4 weeks and 5 weeks. They're not getting you anything. So, I mean, the guy's only been there 2 games. He's already scored at least once. I'm not saying that pace is going to continue, but I think we should take a wait and see posture with this. And then you are going to have to run him out there. Like, unless you have a wealth of wide receivers, it's Amari Cooper. Like, are you going to leave him on your bench? You got to run him out there unless you got other guys.
Yeah, I'm a huge Cooper fan. I know he's getting a little bit older, but he's still only 29. He's not that old yet. He was a league winner last season, particularly once Flacco took over for the
sure
platter that was initially filling in for Watson. Listen, I'm just a fan of Cooper. I think he's a good receiver. I think he's underrated. I think he's working his way in. He got hurt in his second week on the team, so. Yeah, first week, 66 yards and a touchdown. Second week, he only had 1 reception. I know that obviously is really scary as a fantasy owner, but with another week, hopefully coming back healthy, I think he's a guy who could be a league winner again. I think he's one of the guys who I think is just underrated. For as good as he's been, he doesn't get talked about, partially because he's been stuck.
On the teams, and then he was on the Raiders. What was the Raiders before that? Yeah,
I think he was on the Raiders. On Cleveland. I think most people remember him from Dallas. So he's had some really good seasons. I think he's one of these guys who is a better receiver than he'll get credit for in his career. But I like him. I've got him a few teams, and I'm excited for him to be playing with Josh Allen instead of Deshaun Watson.
What about James Cook?
What about him? I mean, you got to play him. Like there's certain players, like you could say, like, what about Josh Allen? It doesn't matter. It doesn't. I mean, you got to run him out there. Like James Cook is in that same category. Like if you're not running James Cook out there, you have to be set at your running back position. Man, your running back position has to be pretty nice for you to leave Cook on the bench, in my opinion. Maybe you got Derrick Henry and Saquon sitting back there already that you're just going to run out in front of him. But I don't see how you leave James Cook on the bench.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to consider for this week. So I'm Reggie's spot on, right? I mean, if you're in a league, you're starting him. If for whatever reason you're not starting him, you must be in an auction league, and you just have if you have Bijan and Saquon, more power to you. But you're starting James Cook, right? I think maybe where this comes into play is if you're playing a DFS league, if you're kind of looking, how do I fill in my spots? The Colts are one of the teams that give up some of the most points to running backs. They, particularly the last couple of weeks, have been really struggling to stop anyone. Aaron Jones and Cam Akers ran and caught the ball all over them last week. Wow. So I will say this, league, Reggie's totally right. You're starting him in DFS or on SMASHMOUTH if you're looking for they're not value cheap play per se, but not one of the top guys like a Saquon is going to cost you $8,000-$9,000 of your budget. Cook makes for a really strong play this week. Colts cannot stop any running backs, and I think he's going to I can see the Bills having a game script where they're giving a bunch of carries, checking down to him, and he could have one of his 100, 150-yard all-purpose weeks.
Might as well finish out that division. And I've seen on a lot of waiver wires, Tua. What do you guys? What did you guys thought? I mean,
I'm actually playing him this week in one of my in my home league. Playing the guy that I'm playing is starting Tua.
But here's the thing. Miami is a completely different team with Tua and without Tua. And you can go up and down. I mean, it's whether he instills that confidence in the players, the fact that he's back with the team. I don't. But Tua is a guy that if he's playing, you have to start every Miami Dolphin that you have on your team.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
At least I think so.
Like he's a
You know,
player
I mean,
who's
maybe
are you
not
gonna
Waddle,
bench
I don't
Waddle or
I say Waddle would be the
okay,
odd man out for me if
Kyrie?
I'm looking at the Achane. If I'm looking at Achane, Hill, because let me look at the guys, right? Achane, Hill, Waddle, Mostert for some, because I think some will run Mostert out there. Those are kind of the guys kind of in that Tua orbit that kind of become startable. Out of those, maybe Waddle and Mostert on the outside looking in. For me personally, I like Achane, I like Hill. But I can't say I love them though. It's strange, guys. Like I like Hill, I don't love it. You know what I mean? Last year I loved it. This year I like it.
I'm with you on this.
You only like it if Tua is playing.
Yeah, correct. You kidding me? With Skylar Thompson out there, I hate it. Like you no, we're not even talking. We're not even discussing that.
No, so it's interesting with the Dolphins. So first of all, with Tua specifically, he's an interesting player, and that as an NFL player, he clearly makes the Dolphins much better. As a fantasy player, he's kind of been a guy you can plug in if you're desperate, but he's never really been a great fantasy quarterback. I think part of that is he just does not run, and
he doesn't run the ball,
brother. On the side.
That is it.
So last year, forget that. I know this year he's been banged up a bit, didn't play a few games, but last year, the entire season, he ran for 74 yards.
Goodness.
And in fantasy, it's tricky. Like you have to be a great passing quarterback to make up for getting literally zero with your feet. I mean, even guys like Purdy and Baker Mayfield, they're not, again, not guys you're going to mistake for Anthony Richardson or Daniels, and they're getting you, 10, 20, 30 yards in a lot of games, which still just adds to your score. As for the other Dolphins, I completely agree with Reggie. As someone who had Waddle last year, I stayed completely away from him this year. He'll have a couple big games. I don't trust him, particularly as high as he went in drafts. He'll obviously, congratulations if you have him. And then with the running game, Achane is clearly taken over as number one there. If he gets hurt, obviously everything could change. I don't even really trust Mostert anymore. Obviously, last year, his touchdown pace was not sustainable, and that's come back to hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
But he can still be playable if he's playing like last year. He seems a bit older, and I will say this, even last week, the last couple weeks, we've seen the Dolphins working in more and more of Jalen Wright. They spent a good draft pick on him. Yes. He looks good. Mostert still got more touches than him, and that may continue. But Wright was clearly eating into Mostert's touches, not Achane's. And in the fourth quarter, they're rotating Achane and Wright, partially because Mostert fumbled, right? So that might be a one-week thing, but Mostert was not in at the end of the game. So if you can trade Mostert and get good value for him, I think he can still contribute to the Dolphins, but his days as someone I trust in fantasy are behind him.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off that quarterback situation with Tua because I've seen certain scoring. This is where it gets very important, guys. If you check the scoring in your league, and that really could be the North Star for a lot of things that we discuss on this show.
Yep.
Check the scoring in your league because I've seen leagues. I had a friend of mine see me in a league with Geno Smith, where Geno Smith was tearing up his league. Like Geno Smith had 40 points, 35 points. So I'm going back to my home league. And I'm like, how did we miss on Geno Smith? Like, this guy's tearing it up over here. I go back to my league. Those same scores are like 17, 16, 50. There weren't that 35, 40 scores. So if you got a Tua in a league where there's quarterback escalators, it's going to have to take something like that in order for him to compete with guys that can just rip off even 40, 50 yards, right? That's an extra 4 or 5 points a game. As we all have played games where we've lost by 4 or 5 points, we know that can make a big difference.
Yeah, most definitely. Make sure you know your scoring format when you're picking up these guys.
I'm just laughing. This literally happened to me. I'm in a, obviously being, co-founder of a fantasy company and going to events like the Fantasy Expo in Canton meet a lot of people. So I've slowly been trying to pare down my leagues a bit. And this year it's exploded. I'm in like 20 leagues, and
I'm
most
at
of them
9 and
are
it's killing me. It's killing me.
most of them are fairly standard, and it's fine. It's like, okay, it's just another league, small variation. I'm in one where I got invited the last second. We drafted, and the first week scoring started happening, and guys were putting same thing. Like the quarterbacks were putting up like 40, 50, they're projected for 40, 50 points. And I'm like,
Wow.
I clearly need to check the settings in advance. I don't even know how they're getting the points. So definitely check them if you have a chance.
Yeah. I think one of the best games I saw this week was the Kansas City game. Let's
That was
talk
Tampa Bay,
about
right? It's Kansas City, Tampa Bay.
Kansas City, Tampa Bay. Kansas City pulls out the game in overtime. Of course, they don't turn the ball back over to Baker to even give him a chance to get back on the field. But let's talk about I don't know. Are they inconsistency? Baker. What is Baker?
It feels like a very existential question, Reggie. What do you think? What is Baker?
A guy that Cleveland wishes they kept is what Baker is. You know what I mean? Because he's tearing it up out there. You know, he's tearing it up. And my guy, and let me tell you guys why I love Baker. And this is the perfect week. So I'm in the same division, but we've already beat him twice, so we're friends now because we've already beat him a couple times. But so I don't want to heap any praise on the Bucks, but I will say I went with the dreaded last week. Had a prayer, had 4 guys missing on bye last week. Had already written off the week in my head. It's just a loss. I'm gonna move on. My guy, I throw a prayer into my flex spot with a tight end named Cade Otton. I throw him into my flex spot. I said, hey, you know what? For the first time in my life, I'm gonna throw a tight end into my flex, and his name is Cade Otton. And Cade Otton took me to the promised land, ladies and gentlemen. Cade Otton bought me the W this last week in my buy-a-getting week, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people have that buy-a-getting week. They're looking at their schedule. They're like, man, week 13, it's going to be terrible for me. And that was what my week was this past week because I have a lot of 49ers and Chiefs. I have a lot of 49ers on my team, and they were gone last week. So
always a good choice.
Hoping. Right, they're back this week, and I got my W. So I love the Bucks, man. You know, especially with I think I'm gonna keep Cade Otton because I was picking him up for like a streaming purpose, but I think I'm gonna at least keep him on my bench. McCaffrey, I think is coming back this week, so I'm gonna have to put McCaffrey into that black spot. But I think I'm gonna hold on to your boy Cade Otton though. He came through for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Baker, last year was kind of a nice story. It's like, he was underrated, and he'd been in that Freddie Kitchens offense and a couple of their disastrous teams with the Browns. And I think we've talked about even on this show before, which it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. Like we just, and I get the why, and I get their short lifespans in the NFL for general managers and coaches, but we get really impatient with these young top quarterbacks. And
yes,
guys who go get drafted at the top of the draft, they're usually going to terrible franchises with bad GMs, bad coaches, bad talent. And look, if you get a CJ Stroud, if you get a Jaden Daniels, that's awesome. But I think people want every top 20 pick to be a Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud. And that's just not the reality. A lot of guys need a couple of years. They need to get used to the speed of the game. And I think we've seen a lot of guys like Baker, like Sam Darnold, like Geno Smith. I know I'm forgetting at least one other one who bounced around for a few years and now look like they're really legitimate NFL quarterbacks. The Niners fan we saw with Alex Smith, right? And I think, so last year Baker just looked like maybe he was getting that. This year he looks legitimately good. And I think to his credit too, you could say to some degree, well, sure, he's got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rashad White, Bucky Irving, so that's a really great situation to be in, particularly compared to the Browns. But now without Godwin, without Evans, the last 2 weeks against Atlanta, pulled up over here 330 yards and 3 touchdowns,
tearing it up still.
Yeah, Kansas City, the stats weren't as gaudy, but he was making big plays. He led a comeback drive with very little time. Like Baker Mayfield might actually be a really, really, really good quarterback. James, what do you think here?
Baker has actually outperformed as far as I was concerned. I was a little apprehensive about Baker at the beginning of the year, but he had some viable receivers. I mean, Mike Evans is always up there on
For sure. Perennial 1,000-yard guy.
yeah, and you also had Godwin, but I will admit that when he lost both of those wide receivers, I thought about dropping him, but thank God I didn't. But I think Baker is one of those guys, like you said. Cleveland still wishes that they had him. I've always been kind of skeptical of Baker, but it seems that he's found that team where he belongs, and they have faith in him, and that makes a big difference.
Looking like a number one pick that he was is what he's been looking like this year.
Yeah, most definitely. And who would have thought? The big thing was, what was he going to look like following behind Brady? Well, now you see.
Pretty good.
Well, and Brady was, Brady's and the argument for GOAT, of course. But by the time Brady got there, he was older too. And I think I paused on repeating myself. It may have been, I can't remember if it was this show or Smash Pod or something else I said it on. But Evans, like Cooper, is another one of those guys. So I feel like if he had been on better teams for his career, he'd be talked about as maybe the best receiver of this generation. Like he's up there in the argument. He's been on a Bucs team that's had a lot of bad quarterbacks, or even when he had Brady, it was a much older version of Brady at the end of his career, and yet he has just put up 1,000+ yards and 10 touchdowns on a regular basis. Just one of the best receivers of our generation, and probably does not get enough credit.
Agreed.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's move on down here. We have to talk about the 8-0 Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah,
do we have to?
Right?
It's
gracious, man. Goodness, yeah. It's wild.
I mean, hey, typical Baker. Typical Patrick Mahomes game this week. You tie it, you get down to where you think that okay, we got a chance here, and then Baker calls tails, and
I think he knew it was over then. Baker knew it was over when he called tails.
there was a quote online.
There was no hesitation. There was no hesitation. Give me the ball.
He knows what it is.
Yeah, give me the ball. It didn't look over to the bench. Didn't look at. Give me the ball.
Yeah. It's crazy because Kansas City is one of those teams that we talked about last week when I was telling you that with at least my fantasy nightmare. I can't describe it for everybody, but my fantasy nightmare has always been having a guy on a team that's doing very well without my guy participating. And I hate when that happens. So I'll give you an example. Last year I had Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's walking up and down the field. He's walking up the field. But when they would get to the goal line, he wouldn't run it in. So it's kind of like they're putting up 30 and my guy is casually participating. Like he's not even he's not having to go out there and win it. He's just going out there and a casual performance from Lamar was still having them put up 30 points. So I feel like that's what the problem that you're going to have with Kansas City. I have Patrick Mahomes on a couple of teams. This guy can put up 12 points and they'll beat you by 15. So it's kind of like there's just no need for my guy on the Chiefs to really have to participate like that. He doesn't have to have 30 points in fantasy to win. So it's kind of like when I'm watching that pace, it kind of is depressing for my Patrick Mahomes teams because I'm like, this is an 8-0 team, but I don't have the best guy in fantasy on it.
I will take the L here. I'll own up to it. I had Mahomes, one of the guys. I've got him in multiple leagues. I thought that.
Me too.
2 years ago, he was phenomenal from a fantasy perspective. Last year, they didn't have any receivers. He struggled. Obviously, they brought in some guys. A couple have gotten hurt. And the other thing last year is just kind of fluky. He got some decent running yards still. He's the guy who's mobile when he needs to be.
Yes.
But he just didn't have any touchdowns. So I thought, okay, well, that's a bit of a fluke. He'll have some positive regression there. And so I got him in several leagues. He's on my bench in all those leagues. I really thought he'd go back to 5,000 yards. I really thought he was. I thought I was so happy to get him, and I just have him on my bench in every league. And I think that the thing that maybe I underestimated, and we all did, is he has nothing to prove. He's like a reverse Brady. Brady was like winning but not putting up stats. They got Moss and all those teams, and he started putting up Tecmo Bowl numbers. Whereas Mahomes has his MVPs, he has his numbers, he has his rings. He just wants to win. And Kansas City used to have a so-so defense, and so he was just in shootouts, and he was doing whatever he had to win the game. Now they have again, probably underrated, but fairly elite defense. And so he is happy to milk the clock, to do just enough, let the defense carry them. And he just doesn't need to put up the points. And yeah, he's not. But to your point, Reggie, it's sad. It is. I've joked with my Ming, who's on the show with us before, that it's one of the worst feelings in fantasy that happens in every sport. You don't get to watch the game. You're out, you're doing something maybe with your spouse. You come back, you look at the box score, you're like, wow, the team with my fantasy player put up 50 points. I can't wait to see. I must be killing it. You open the box score and like your player has, 3 catches, 16 yards, and no touchdowns. You're like, how did they put up 50? And the star.
So depressing.
Yeah.
So that Jawan Jennings game was like that for me because I had Ayuk, and I looked at that box score, and I'm like, Ayuk ate today, and no, he did not. It was Jawan Jennings who ate all the food that week. So yes, absolutely know what that feels like.
Okay, guys, I got a quandary here, and I want you guys to tell me how I settle this. When Pacheco went down, I picked up Kareem Hunt.
Well, I did too, and then I dropped him like an idiot.
Right now, I still have Kareem Hunt, and I still have Pacheco on IR. What do I do?
Why?
What do I do?
You must have 1,000 IR spots, James. How many IR spots do you have in your league? Or you only got one guy? Okay, you have 2 IR spots. Do you have guys in both IR spots or just one?
I had Nakua in one.
Okay,
and now he's out. So
Nakua, so you got a free IR spot.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only way I could even remotely suggest holding on to Pacheco for the prayer that he comes back before some fantasy playoffs.
But what do I do when he comes back?
Put him in the game.
Do I keep them both? Do I? I mean, Kareem has actually been somewhat of a joy this year. I mean, he's connected. He's been getting his touchdowns. He's been getting his touches. He's rejuvenated his career in Kansas City once again. What do I do when I get them both back?
I'm gonna take this after the Hawk here.
Yeah.
I'll let the Hawk go, and I'll go after.
This advice is gonna vary team to team depending on what you have, how you're doing, what your record is. If I have Hunt, and I do not have him to be honest, but I am shopping him right now. It's a little bit like the Jordan Mason situation. I don't think he has standalone value. He doesn't have value when Pacheco comes back. At absolute best, it is a 2-headed monster. At best, he destroys the value for both of them. Pacheco comes back and is at 100%. If Pacheco's healthy, though, I mean, if you cut Hunt's carries in half, he's not putting up, again, Tecmo Bowl stats. And actually, he's been great for fantasy teams because of volume. He's averaging something like 3.7 yards per carry. He's not catching the ball at all. They're not using him. They're using Perrine as the pass catching back. So he's great if you needed him. If you're a shorter running back, he's been a revelation. He's not been that great of an actual real life running back, though. When Pacheco comes back, his value is going to go. So if you can shop him, if you can get some value, if you can package him with another player and get an upgrade, I would recommend doing that now. Well, Pacheco's still 2 to 3 weeks away, and maybe the value's there.
Yeah, right. I feel like as we're wont to do in multiple leagues, whether it's basketball, I play a lot of basketball fantasy. So whether it's basketball fantasy, whether it's football fantasy, I can give you one suggestion, ladies and gentlemen. Do not fall in love with the backup. Do not fall in love with the backup. You might have a guy that's carried you for weeks, and you feel like this is still going to be a guy. He's going to have value, and you run him out there. And as soon as a team even thinks the main guy is back, if at best your opportunities are going to be limited. So at best, they're going to cut the opportunities for your backup guy that you had there. The guy that was getting 18 touches a game, now he's going to get about 9, maybe 6 even. He's going to get about a third to half of the touches he was getting before. And as they work their guy that they want into the game, those will go to 0 touches. They will go to like, maybe we run this guy in spell every now and then. So I would personally, if you have an extra roster spot, I could tell you guys what I'm doing with Christian McCaffrey right now. So I'm going to keep Jordan Mason on my roster. I'm going to run McCaffrey out there. And depending on how that situation goes, maybe a week or 2 down the line, I'll drop Jordan Mason. I'm not really hurting for that roster spot. So I do think that it depends on how many free roster spots, just like I asked you, James, about how many IR spots you had when you said you were holding Pacheco. How many roster spots do you have to hold one of these backup handcuffed running backs to a back? You know, I had to let Braylon Allen go. I held on to Braylon Allen, guys, for like 4 or 5 weeks. I held on to Braylon Allen for a long time and had to let him go.
Okay.
I still have him on my bench. I am the James. I need you to write a book I can read on like letting go of the backups. I'm the guy who has like 6 handcuffs on
premium
my
handcuffs. Premium handcuffs. Like, and Braylon Allen Hawk is one of the premier premium handcuffs, right? So that's a guy that a lot of guys would be after. But when I'm looking at my roster, I think right now, if Breece Hall was to go down, I would definitely start Braylon Allen over maybe Najee, because right now I have Najee, Tyrone, Tracy, and Christian McCaffrey. So it'd be hard for him to get into my lineup right now. But if Breece Hall was to go down, who knows? You know, maybe he leapfrog somebody.
That's an interesting question there. And James, I hope I'm not taking us off pace for the agenda, but who Reggie and James are your like top couple handcuffs? Who are the guys you're stashing on your bench saying, look, obviously there's a lot of backups who, if the starter goes down, you'll play if you have an open spot, right? Like Kareem Hunt. But who are the guys you're like, I'm holding this guy, and if the starter gets injured, this guy could be the league winner. This guy could carry me to the promised land. James,
I'll let you go, and then I can answer after that.
Put me on the spot here. Right now, I think the guys that I have handcuffed are of course, you'll be glad to hear this, Chris.
Go, James.
Are 49ers. And I have, like a Reggie, I have a Christian, and I also have a Jennings. So right now, I'm holding on to Jennings, hoping that if McCaffrey isn't that man coming back, at least not the first week, at least that Jennings will be a viable substitute until we can get McCaffrey back up to 100%. But right now, from everything coming out of the 49ers camp, McCaffrey's ready to go. So we'll see.
That's what I've been hearing also. But I did hear that week 1 also, guys, and it is week 10.
Yeah.
I heard that out of Christian McCaffrey's own mouth. Told me he was playing on Monday, and that Monday never came, or that Sunday never came. It was Sunday. He was playing on Sunday, but it's Sunday 10 weeks from now.
Yeah,
that's what he meant to say.
James, I'm getting symptoms of pain over. I think you need to text Reggie's wife and say, go to the studio and give him a hug. He's a hug moment. I feel like Reggie's had some residual pain from week
man.
1. The Niners
I got some PTSD there, man. Absolutely.
So there's the Niners players. Reggie, who's on your bench? Who are your league winners here?
To me, that guy was still Braylon Allen, guys. Like, I've just been so rife with injuries. So just to give you a peek into this situation here, in my home league, my first 5 picks. So I'm only playing with one of my first 5 picks in my home league. I'm only playing with one. Drake London is the only guy. I had Rashee Rice. I had Brandon Ayuk. I had Isaiah Pacheco. I had Christian McCaffrey. These were all my first 5 picks, and Drake London was like in there somewhere. So I still have. So I've been working the waiver wire every single week. Like I'm in it like the grocery store, like Walmart, man. I'm in there and I'm shopping. I'm shopping every single week. So I've been having to work it pretty hard. So my roster has been more fluid in this league than it in some of my other leagues. It's been a little bit more stable. In this league, guys, it's guys coming in and out pretty much every week. I will tell you a few guys that I really like talk that I did have on my team, which is Braylon Allen. I still like. I just had to drop him because of injuries and moving around, but it's not necessarily. If I could hold on to Braylon Allen, I think he's a premium handcuff. If you have Tyler Algier is a premium handcuff. If you, I did, Chris handcuff Devin Singletary. That's why I have Tyrone Tracy. So I did handcuff him. Yes, I handcuffed him with Tyrone Tracy. And so now I'm running Tyrone Tracy out there. And I will say right now, the only other handcuff I'm really holding is just Jordan Mason for McCaffrey. And to be honest with you guys, with the way McCaffrey's been going, I'm probably going to hold those two. Probably the rest of the season. The rest of the season, I'm probably going to hold those two.
Yeah.
If I can throw one more name out there to get your take on, I will tell you one guy I've gotten a lot of leagues. It's a lot of names you mentioned, I'd say. I agree with. One other name I'll throw out there is Ray Davis.
I had a chance, guys. I had a chance. Have you guys ever done this before where you peruse the waiver wire the day before a game and you pass that guy who absolutely goes off the next day? And you're like, I had an absolute chance to put him on my team. Ray Davis was that guy, guys. Instead, I went with Jerry Jeudy last week. They didn't have the same week, but Jeudy got me just enough to win. So I can't lie. He got me enough to win because Jameis just likes to throw the ball all over the place. So he got me enough to win. But it was no Ray Davis performance, and he's definitely a guy that seems he's got to be premium Hawk though, right? Because he's a guy that's been performing with Cook in the lineup. He's had some days, just not as many. You should be running him out there. But Lord, if you had to run Ray Davis out there last week, man, you were fortunate.
He had the big play. The volumes, I'd say the volume would make me nervous about starting Ray Davis now, right? I mean,
absolutely,
he's not going to have a home run, but he looks phenomenal. And if anything happens to James Cook in that offense, Ray Davis, I've had some handcuff luck the last few years. I had Kyron Williams last year.
Nice.
The year before. I had H.N. last year as well, which was good and then not so good when he got hurt. But Ray Davis feels like if something happens to Cook, he could be one of those guys who starts putting up 20-point weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And winning your fantasy league for you.
All right, guys. Well, hey, let's run off our lineups for this week and see how we do. I'll give you mine first, and then I'll let you guys go.
Okay.
So this week I'm running out Josh Allen, of course, as my starting quarterback. I started Jamar Chase. And he gave me almost 50 points.
Blesses you starting Jamar Chase. And it sucks for guys who had to play him. I got Chase and Burrow in a league, guys. I got the Chase Burrow stack in a league that I'm first in. And I got almost 100 points off these guys. These guys gave me 87 points with just these two guys.
One of my best friends texted me distraught yesterday. He's in one league now. He's pared it down. He's got a wife and 2 kids. He's got his one league. And he's, was a big week for him. He's like, I am going against Lamar Jackson, Jamar Chase. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, I need luck. I'm counting a loss already. I'm chalking this up a little bit.
Man, get ready for next week. That's what he needs to do, Hawk. Get ready for next week, man. Get that lineup set for next week, brother.
Yeah. My second wide receiver is DJ Moore. And they're going up against New England, of course. And then I have Saquon Barkley. This week, unfortunately, I'm starting DeAndre Swift. But
unfortunately, DeAndre's had some games, man.
He
come through for you.
He's had some games, and this week, one of the reasons why I took him this week is because he's going against that New England defense. Okay. So that was another reason why I put him out there. My tight end is Freiermuth. I could have started Andrews. He got those 15 points, but unfortunately I didn't. And my right, as of now, it might change as things goes on. But right now, my flex spot is Deebo Samuels. Okay. I didn't do quite as well on my kickers and wide receivers. Justin Tucker did get me a big 3 points, and the Ravens, the Ratbirds defense, they got me a big 4 points.
Man,
So,
surprised they didn't go negative on you, man. Be glad, be happy, be happy.
I mean, man, it's a kicker, not a skill position. But Tucker's a little bit of what you were talking about earlier, Reggie. You see the Ravens put up, 40 points. You think, wow,
Yeah,
Tucker
man.
must have gone off for me, and then you get
Right.
So right now, I'm 56.9 starting out against my opposition. So I don't feel too bad about that. Who's next?
Let me
Reggie,
see.
why don't you go for it?
I'm scrolling through. Okay, so I got to give you guys some context here, and you guys can let me know if I'm getting too cute here, because this is a situation where I am getting cute here, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I am, and it's right off top. It's with the quarterback position. So this is blasphemy, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there because Jaden Daniels is my quarterback. Jaden Daniels is my quarterback, and that's who I would run out there this week. Jaden Daniels is playing Pitt this week, playing Pittsburgh. I'm running out Brock Purdy, and I'm going to tell you why I'm running out Brock Purdy for several reasons. You guys let me know if I'm an idiot, okay? So one reason I'm running Brock Purdy out there is the guy that I'm playing has Deebo Samuel. So I don't want him to get any points without my guy getting points. So there's no way Deebo gets those points unless they do like a jet sweep or something. They do love to use them in different ways. But I feel like I can kind of guard against that, and Brock Purdy doesn't suck. So if I had a quarterback that really was crappy, then I wouldn't even think about the strategy. But the fact that Brock Purdy's he's gotten me decent points in other weeks. They're kind of not. Jaden's gotten me more, but it's not like Brock has sucked in my league. So I'm running Brock Purdy out there. Another reason, guys, I'm running Brock Purdy out there is because of Christian McCaffrey may be coming back. So I'm trying to get the Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey stack, and also defend against my opponent having Deebo Samuel on his team. So Brock Purdy there. Drake London, I hear he's going to play. This is my wide receivers is where it gets really sus, guys. Drake London, if he plays, all good. Jordan Addison, who I've really liked for the last couple years, and I keep running him out there, and he's pleasantly surprised me every now and then. His touchdown catch last week helped get me the win. The guy that I'm questionable about on the wide receiver that I picked up off the waivers because I had to fill an empty spot, was Roma Dunze. I was able to pick him up off the waivers and just kind of throw him in and pray that he gets me something. This is my Jarrett Judy of last week, just throwing a guy in the lineup and just pray he catches something. Running backs, Tyrone Tracy and Najee Harris. My Trey McBride on my tight end, been doing excellent things for me. I love Trey. I got Trey last year. It's my second year with him. Right now I have Cade Otton in the flex, but that's going to be Christian McCaffrey once I get the all clear, which I'm pretty sure is the all clear. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I'm just waiting to the last minute to do it. But Christian McCaffrey is going to be there instead of Cade Otton in that flex spot. Chris Boswell, who's been doing excellent for me. And then when I go to my defense, guys, I have a 2 defense strategy that I'm employing this year that I've never done before. So I have 2 defenses. I have Denver and I have the Chargers. Okay. And they're 2 excellent defenses in my league. They're doing amazing things for me. I play either one depending on their matchup. So I'm not depending on, I used to be a defensive streamer where I'm just streaming depending on matchup, but I've had a couple of years where I've dropped really good defenses to do that. And it came back to bite me maybe a week or 2 later. So now I have defenses that I just really like. I get 1 or 2 defenses that I like. Depending on that matchup, I'll switch them out. The matchup this week, I have the Chargers in because they're going up against Tennessee versus having Denver in going up against KC. So you see how I'm able to kind of switch them, and then that's going to switch the next week. Like next week, I think I'm going to be switching them back and forth. But paid massive dividends for me last week, guys. I started the Chargers last week and helped me get the win last week with that strategy. But that's what I'm going with. Do you guys think I'm crazy on this Brock Purdy stuff? What do you guys think about that?
No, I mean against the Bucs are one of the worst teams defending the pass, right? So I think Purdy's good. The biggest concern with Purdy, I mean, look. Always depends on what your other option is. And in leagues, if you have
Jaden Daniels here, and it's a good option. Like, it's Jaden Daniels just going up against Pittsburgh. Daniels against Pittsburgh. Hard to sit Jaden Daniels in any situation. Any situation. It's hard to sit. And also, guys, this is not exactly advice. It's more so like the guy that I'm playing, me having Christian McCaffrey. You got to have a very specific set of circumstances to even be considering this. Otherwise, no, absolutely not. You don't sit Jaden Daniels ever, in my opinion.
It's a little cute, but it's justifiable. I get the logic. And, look, if you were using the same logic and he was going up against the Chiefs defense or the Chargers defense, I'd say no, too cute. Against the Bucks.
That was another thing that factored in, Chris. Absolutely. The matchup fact played a role in there as well.
I will also say you do not have the best receivers, but your receiver, you do have the receiving room with the greatest names.
I try for something. I'll take that award. Roma
Those
Dunze
are the
and Drake
funnest
London.
names to
Yes,
say.
absolutely.
I love it. If they just roll off the. Anyway, I don't know, James. What do you think with Purdy? Is it a good move or too cute?
I like Purdy, especially with the matchup. Of course, this is a very key matchup with the Steelers this week. And Jaden Daniels, I'm kind of with you, Reggie. Any other time, I would probably run Jaden out there. But, with the matchup with Purdy, I think it's a better matchup. But I wouldn't actually be mad if you ran either one of them out, except for the
I kind of agree with that, because if you got teams that runs Jaden Daniels out there, you can't really fault anybody running Jaden Daniels out there. But another thing I'm going to mention about that, guys, when I look at Jaden, and I'm not sure if this is going to be the same with the Steelers, but if you look at Jaden in that Bears game, he didn't have me any points until that last play. The very last play that Jaden threw that bomb, and then Noah Brown, it bounced off somebody's helmet, and Noah Brown caught the pass in the end zone. Before that, I had no points. Jaden Daniels didn't have me the points. And Brock Purdy would have had a better week that week up until that point, until Jaden Daniels literally made that one pass. So I'm thinking, the Pittsburgh, they got a good defense. I just don't know. If Jaden could come out and still have a decent game and have 15, 16 points. So it's kind of you never know. But in my particular case, guys, do not take this for advice. You play Jaden Daniels if you got Jaden Daniels.
No, and I also like the move that the Steelers made on defense this week. So even though he might not have a lot of snaps, but I'm thinking that Pittsburgh has done a little bit more to strengthen that defense, and hey, we're going into the teeth of our schedule. So you gotta run the Steelers out there when you can, because right now we have 6 of our last 9 games against division opponents, and then we're playing the Eagles and the Commanders, I believe, our last 2 games. So you have to take advantage of these opportunities when you can.
Yeah, I got Najee and Boswell out there. Did you run the sell high by by Chris? Did you run that blasphemy that we were discussing last week, James, about selling Najee?
Oh my goodness!
After Najee carried me through the promised land for a couple weeks, I picked Najee up off the waiver wires, guys. One of my teammates was out on this guy, and I picked him up off the waiver wires, and he's taking me to the promised land. I have no interest in dropping Najee, even if I just hold him on my bench. What do you think about the sell high?
I will never mention selling Najee again. It threw my whole programming off for the week. But
I'm glad I missed that. Apparently, it's Najee's been running well. He's kind of gone from a bit overrated to a bit underrated. I feel like people don't have a lot of respect for him, but he is consistent. They love him, and it's funny. The pain. There's pain with this, but Arthur Smith loves to run.
He loves, if nothing else, he's going to run the ball. Right. If nothing else, the guy's going to get opportunities for sure.
Absolutely. Listen, I always say fantasy, producing in fantasy is 3 things. It is skill plus opportunity plus a little bit of luck, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You get the carries, what can you do with them? And then, things like touchdowns can be a little bit fluky depending on the player. So do you get a little bit of luck there? And Najee's probably a fairly average-ish running back. I think a lot of people thought he was bad from the first couple of years when the Steelers' line was really bad. he's my average. He's probably replacement level running back, but he's got the opportunity.
Yes.
Steelers line is decent, so he's going to give us numbers.
I like his floor also. Not just a good floor guy. I mean, when you look at it, at least he'll probably get you 8 to 10. You know what I mean? When you're looking at that, you're like, if you could at least maintain that floor, because believe me, guys, I've had guys that fell off the face of the earth on some of my lineups, get you nothing.
For your role players, that's important, right? I mean, you need, you want to have a few guys who can carry you and are a little higher variance, which usually is like your star players. You want to have that Jamar Chase and give you, 40 points in a week and carry you to the promised land. But when it comes to the role players, nothing that's worse. I mean, they kind of go out and give you like 1 point. And just if you just pencil a guy like you're saying Naj and be like, I'm writing an 8 here. He may never go above 20, but I can pencil in 8 every single week. That's really helpful for planning your team.
I ran Braylon Allen out there last week, guys. He got me 0.7. Yeah, 0.7, 0.9. I know it wasn't a point.
That makes you appreciate Najee, right?
Absolutely. I can't wait to get Najee back into the lineup. Absolutely.
I just pull up his game log. I don't think he has scored more. His high week this week is like 17. That's the most he's got, which is it's a good week. Don't get me wrong, but it's not great. But I'm not seeing a week here where he puts up below 7 points. That
works. I'll take that. I'll take at least, if I can get at least 7. If I know I was going to get at least 7 from guys, or I can get a 7 floor from guys, that becomes very attractive when you look at how close the scoring is in a lot of these games.
Should I give you my lineup before I got to get out of here?
It's your turn, Chris.
All right. If I can, let me share screen. I know we're talking a little bit about Smash Up earlier. And Reggie, I don't know if you missed it, but James actually won some money last week. So he was in.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay, man. I got to get my lineup. I still have time to get my lineup in this week, right? Because I was out of the country the last couple weeks and my stuff was acting crazy. But I should be able to get a lineup in this week before the games start, right? Before the games start on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You could even do a lineup on Monday, right? Like it's not going to be great because you only have 2 teams to choose from. But players lock when the
like DFS pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you still have that chance to get in your lineup. And now that you're out of the country, we launched our new single player game we're talking about earlier, where you go up against it's like Street Fighter, right? You got to beat Coach 1 to go to Coach 2. But there's 6 head coaches. They get increasingly more difficult. The lineups for a lot of them are set by fantasy experts from different sites.
Interesting.
A couple guys from Fantasy Pros, Scott Fish from Scott Fish Bull Leagues. Our own chef is doing one of the Ming is doing one of them. So you're going up against some guys who know what they're doing. And so this week I'm going up against Scott Fish. I'm going up against boss number 4. And so I don't know if my screen's sharing here yet, but I've got my lineup up because I'll show people the cards I played too. It's a little different Smash Up, where not only do you pick your players like in DFS, but you also pick these Smash cards to help boost them. One quirk of our single player, the bosses get harder as you go on, and so every single week you play, your Smash card budget goes up by 1,000. So
okay.
A little further on, you've got you can play a few more cards. You can make your team a little better. So that's right, James. Is the screen showing?
I don't think so. I don't see anything popped up here now.
Hold on.
There we go.
All right. So I got an interesting one this week, and this may again, you guys can also tell me am I getting a little too cute or not. So my team is based around this card, Alicia's halfbacks we have, where your running backs, their scores get boosted. Any running backs you play. So I'm playing 3, 1 in the flex. Take advantage of that, but your quarterback score goes down. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to play a great quarterback. In fact, some people will just probably leave the quarterback spot.
Punt on it all together. Is that Mac Jones? And you're like,
that is Mac Jones. I got Mac Jones. But to be clear with Mac, I also have our card Goldfish Memory on him. With Goldfish Memory, every turnover is worth 8 points instead of the normal -2.
Man, so Jameis, I hope you started Jameis last week with that card like that, right? He'll get you 40 points.
My main league with my buddies. I'm in this big 30-person league with some of my best friends, and I did exactly what I'm doing here. I did Hellacious with running backs who all went off. Like there were a lot of great matchups. Last week was the running back week, right? Saquon went off, Henry went off. The matchups were really good. We'll see if this week I can do it again. But yeah, I had the Chargers defense and I had Jameis, so my team blew up last week. So I got Mac with that. To take advantage of Felicia's halfbacks, I've got Saquon. I've got your guy, Reggie, Bijan. You guys have a great matchup this week. Then Aaron Jones and the flex against Jacksonville, who can't stop anybody. When had Jamar, great start, obviously, to the week right there.
Excellent,
not too much to say about that.
Absolutely.
And then Noah Brown was my kind of value pick. I'm not counting on
who
Hail Mary,
I kind of like, guys. Like, by the way, I almost picked him up because you guys know that I have the Jaden Daniels, right? So I wasn't able to get the Daniels McLaurin stack because I took Daniels so late. McLaurin went way earlier than Daniels was going in drafts this past season. But I will tell you though, I thought about it, Hawk. So you're not all the way off because I seen him on the bench and I'm like, well, I seen him on the waivers and I'm thinking I could go ahead and throw him on my bench. Get the Noah Brown, Jaden Daniels stack if they get it going, you know.
I agree. I think we maybe telling right before you jumped on, but he's a guy who is sitting on waivers in a lot of leagues. You know, obviously there's a lot of receivers we can like, but a lot of them are owned in different leagues. So Noah's a guy who has been on waivers in a couple of my leagues, and he played well last year in Houston, particularly when Tank got hurt, or a couple of weeks. I think Nico was out last year too. And then this year he's really started to come on. He's getting the targets. He's, not a great receiver, but almost like Najee. If you need a guy who seems to have a decent floor, he seems good for 40 to 60 yards a week, and he'll probably throw in a handful of touchdowns or bigger receiving games. So he's my value pick here, right? He's cheap because, in DFS you got to have a couple of guys who are a bit less. Hunter Henry was one of my cheaper options I went cheap on tight end, but I like him in the matchup against the Bears. They're really bad at defending tight ends, even though the defense is good. And Drake's been targeting him. And then Youngway as my kicker, who always like is a guy that can blow up. And, again, this is a bit of, we talk about stacks. You would never do this in traditional fantasy, but this works in DFS and in Smash Up, which is I've got that Vikings defense who's going against Mac Jones. So every turnover Mac has, not only will I get.
You're doubling up. I see. You're doing the double up here. I got you.
Yeah, he is.
So takeaway car, you get extra points for every turnover the defense gets. And I've got this card, defense wins championships, where a little bit of a prop bet, right? If the team wins the game, you get 15 points. So I do think the Vikings will beat the Mac Jones Jaguars. So I am really counting on Mac Jones having a terrible game. I'll probably score maybe like 6-7 points. But again, halfback pulls that down. But if he gets me those turnovers, it's going to be huge with Goldfish memory and with the Minnesota defense there. So I'm counting on those. I'm counting on a bad Mac Jones game and some good running back games, getting me past Scott Fish, getting me past the this boss, getting me to boss number 5. So we'll see what happens.
Off to a great start with Jamar Chase. Tell you that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey, let's get out of here. Reggie, you want to give us your final thoughts for the evening?
Guys. Going into the second half of the season, guys, as things are starting to really heat up, I have, as I told you before, I'm in about roughly, it's actually 11 leagues. I'm in 11 leagues, but I feel like I'm only in contention in like 5 to 6 of them, maybe like half of those. But things are really starting to come down to the wire, and good luck going into the second half of the fantasy season for a lot of us, guys. It's really like we're really either getting ready for next season at this point or getting ready to see what our play-up lineup is starting to look like. And that picture is coming a lot clearer for a lot of us, guys.
Yes, sir. Chris.
Yeah, I think Reggie said it right, which is, first couple weeks is a little fluky. You're trying to figure out what's real. Things are locking in now. The waiver wires are getting a bit barer. So start the year with a lot of potential sleepers, a lot of guys to pick up. Now you're kind of like looking for the Noah Browns, right? You're not finding Pukas on the waiver this time of year. You're finding Noah Browns you can slot in. And it becomes, I think, though, a time of the year where if they're out there, you pick up those handcuffs.
Yes.
Injuries are going to keep coming fast and furious. And so if you look at waivers and you see, the guys you mentioned, you see the Jordan Masons, you see the Braylon Allens, you see Ray Davis, you see even maybe a guy like a Jalen Wright, stash them. It is a long second half of the year. And I will say a lot of people who win fantasy leagues are guys who they're doing okay. They're sitting the lower playoff seeds. And then, they've got the Ray Davis, or last year they had Kyron Williams, and he comes back from his injury fresh, by the way, not dinged up, and just runs the table at the end of the year. So look for those guys and look to win your league.
All right, guys. Well, hey, another great Saturday morning. Look forward to talking to everybody next week or as soon as possible. And hey, have a great fantasy football weekend and have a great weekend, guys. Look forward to
All right,
talking.
guys. See you next
Thanks all.
time, guys.
See you next
See you
time.
next time.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.